Hello, friends. Welcome to the latest installment of our Land of the Lost series. This time, we're delving into the cases of Keeslyn Roberts and Caleb Smith. Now, with all the bizarre and seemingly unexplainable disappearance stories going around on YouTube and other places these days, it's easy to get caught up in them and forget that these are real people, real possible victims who had family and friends, loved ones whose lives were affected in every possible way by the person's disappearance. It could also be true that with all the books coming out and, again, all the videos made and the information online about these cases, it's quite easy to become numbed or jaded to these stories, to these people. Couldn't it also be true that maybe this numbness, this nonchalance, and somewhat boredom with cases like these, one after another, could be exactly what, who, or whatever is involved in orchestrating these disappearances and murders counts on? In this episode, we're going to discuss two different cases that have a strange similarity and also a bit of a connection. Please keep in mind, though, that these are real human beings, and though their cases may or may not be similar to those you've heard over 1,000 times already, be sure and pay attention to the details here. Listen closely and focus on the similarities and strangeness of both of these cases, while being sure to bear in mind that there is one big difference. One of them could very well still be alive, and one of them, unfortunately, has already been found deceased. Let's start with the tragedy of Caleb Smith. On January 15, 2020, Caleb Smith told his grandmother that he was driving to Rome, Georgia, to spend the day hanging out with some friends who lived there. This wasn't anything out of the ordinary for the 21-year-old, so when he requested that she leave the deadbolt to the front door of their house unlocked for him so he could re-enter when he got back home later on that night, she happily obliged and thought nothing of it. Little did she know that while she would speak to her grandson at least one more time over the phone that same day, as he walked out the front door of their house that ill-fated cold day in January, it would be the last time she would ever actually see him alive. Technically, the next day, at 12:32 a.m., Caleb entered the Flying J gas station in Resaca, Georgia. This was on the way to Rome, Georgia. We know Caleb entered this establishment at this exact time because he was seen on the gas station's minimal surveillance footage. 3 minutes later, at 12:35 a.m., Caleb called his grandmother and informed her that he had to pull into the rest stop because he realized he didn't have enough gas to get to Rome as he'd initially planned. He told her there was one man sitting at a table on the other side of the restaurant that he was going to ask to help him with $5 for gas money so he can continue on his journey to go and see his friends. Though his phone records have not been made public at this time, Caleb is seen on the same surveillance footage sitting at his table for a few minutes, seemingly sending texts but possibly browsing the internet. Caleb did eventually get up and approach the man. Assumingly, he asked the man for the $5 for gas money as he told his grandmother he was going to do. However, it is unclear whether or not the man gave Caleb the $5, and Caleb actually ended up approaching the man twice in a matter of just a few minutes. It's still unknown exactly what the exchanges were between the two men. No word either on whether or not this man was ever identified or questioned. No information, one way or the other, can be found. After approaching and speaking to this man the second time, Caleb returns to his own table and sits down, facing this unknown man. After just a minute or two, Caleb gets up and leaves the gas station rest stop area, never to be seen alive again. When morning came and Caleb's grandmother realized that his bed hadn't been slept in, she became very concerned. If Caleb had planned on staying out, he never would have asked her to leave the deadbolt unlocked for him. She decided to go to the last place she knew him to be when he wasn't answering his phone or returning any of her texts, so she got into her own car and drove down to the Flying J rest stop and searched the surrounding area and the parking lot for Caleb's car. She eventually found his car parked in the Flying J parking lot, but in the back of the Denny's restaurant building, assuming where the back entrance or garbage exit would be. This location could be important because it seems Caleb was parked almost purposely out of view of any of the surveillance cameras. His grandmother states that she didn't immediately get out of her car to search Caleb's car because she saw a suspicious-looking white Nissan that, in her words, she said, freaked her out, and decided it was safer to remain in her vehicle until Caleb's other family members, whom she had just called, arrived. She never elaborated on why this white Nissan was suspicious looking to her or why it freaked her out so, although it speculated it was because the windows were tinted very dark and the vehicle had pulled in and parked directly facing her in front of her vehicle, and nobody exited the Nissan. Immediately upon the arrival of the other two family members she had called to come and assist her, the white Nissan pulled out of the parking lot. There's no information regarding whether or not this white Nissan had any involvement in what happened to Caleb. Upon searching Caleb's car, the family found it was unlocked. His cell phone and battery were separated and both in the glove box. The keys to the vehicle were on the floor underneath the seat. Although Caleb had called his grandmother the previous night and explained to her that he was almost out of gas, his car had a half a tank of gas in it when it was found. This would have been more than enough to get him to Rome. Essentially, Caleb called his grandmother to explain about his being low on gas for seemingly no reason. It's been said that he did it to give a reason as to why he would be later than expected coming home, if he was stuck trying to get money for gas, but that hasn't been verified. Caleb's jacket was also found in the car. It was a very cold night in Georgia in the middle of January. The family couldn't understand why he would leave his jacket behind. After searching his vehicle, his family called the police to report Caleb as missing. Gordon County Sheriff's Office spent all of the next 2 days, January 16th and 17th, searching the areas around the Flying J rest stop for any additional evidence or for Caleb himself, with no results. It's also worth mentioning here that the GCSO never processed Caleb's car for additional evidence, forensic or otherwise, and immediately released it to the family. On February 3rd, 2020, Caleb Smith's body was found 5 miles away from the Flying J. He was in a marshy and overgrown area of the county between the Sugar Valley and Hill City communities. The sheriff's office reported that a passerby found him in a heavily overgrown and poorly drained area. Caleb was completely naked, and oddly enough, the fire department had been dispatched to that same area his body was found earlier in the day in response to a small brush fire and didn't come across Caleb's remains. This is another odd fact. Despite not knowing whether or not this brush fire was connected to Caleb's death or not, it was an incredibly wet few weeks there in Georgia at the time, so for a brush fire to have been started on its own was almost impossible. The initial report stated, however, no immediate indications of violence were apparent regarding Caleb's body, and the GBI revealed that there were no indications of violence or evidence of foul play. The results of the toxicology report were as follows. Caleb died as a result of methamphetamine intoxication. There's no known information as to whether or not Caleb ever had a problem with any kind of drugs, and the death was ruled accidental. If it weren't for something eerily similar happening to a young woman just 2 days later at the same exact Flying J gas station, that may have been the end of Caleb's story. However, when you add up the similarities with the story I'm about to relate to you, even when sprinkling in the differences, one can't help but wonder. We in the true crime community know there's usually no such thing as coincidence, and we all also know that nobody knows this better than law enforcement. So why exactly are they trying so hard to make us believe that coincidence is exactly what seems to connect these two cases? Are we really to believe that a young man, supposedly with enough methamphetamine in his system to kill him, stripped off his clothes and then not only decided to walk 5 miles in the bitter cold, high and naked, but that he managed to do so without calling any attention to himself at all? Is it reasonable to think that not a single person would have noticed a naked young man walking on the side of the road for an entire 5 miles? There are so many facts that just do not seem to fit with the accidental death ruling. Let's review just some of them now. First of all, even if we asked no questions and accepted that Caleb was able to walk all that way without being noticed despite the condition he was in both physically and mentally, keep in mind, Caleb was found completely naked. This means no socks, no shoes, nothing. Are we also to believe that he could have accomplished this naked and 5-mile walk without not only doing no damage to, but also not dirtying his feet at all? There's no explanation as to why or how the police have been able to reconcile themselves to calling this death, with all the strange facts and evidence, an accident. Caleb was found in a very muddy, marshy area. Not even a drop of mud on his feet. His clothes were never found either, but again, there is no information as to the extent of the police investigation into where his clothes went either. Why wasn't Caleb's family allowed to identify the body? Some say it's simply because of the state of decomposition of the body after being outside the marshland for so long, but others aren't so sure. Remember, this was during the cold winter in January. Speculation and rumors surround this case, and it seems no one knows enough to be able to separate fact from fiction. Our research was only able to find two that weren't absolutely off-the-wall wild conjectures and made just a tiny bit of sense. The first of these theories is that he may have gotten into someone else's car to smoke the methamphetamine, a dealer, or perhaps maybe the man he was seen on camera having multiple conversations with, who, to the best of the public's knowledge, was never even found, let alone questioned or investigated in any way. And as tends to happen sometimes to people who partake in this particular substance, Caleb became overheated and started taking off his clothes. Before anyone knew what was happening, Caleb started overdosing, and whoever he was with, if he was with anyone, didn't want to be involved in any way with this overdose death for fear, especially if they were the one that sold or gave it to him. But even if they were just using with him and drove Caleb's body to the marshland and left it there, did whoever this person or people were think about DNA evidence or forensics, and possibly, instead of Caleb stripping himself, did the perpetrators or witnesses strip him of his clothes after he died to eliminate any kind of touch or fiber evidence, eventually coming back to link them or their car to his death? The fact of the matter is, we just don't know, and it seems as though if the investigators in this case have it their way, we never will. Caleb's case is officially closed at this point. 2 days after the incident with Caleb at this Flying J gas station, an eerily and almost shockingly similar disappearance happened. Many people who are familiar with Caleb's case feel like what happened to Keeslyn Roberts, or at least what everyone knows happened to her because she is yet to be found, should have initiated at least a little bit more investigation into his case. They believe it should have led the police, as it did for most of the public, into asking some serious questions regarding that accidental death ruling. So, what happened to Keeslyn? Let's find out. Now, please keep in mind as we go over the details that we know in her case that she is still considered missing and should be presumed alive until it can be proven that she is not. So pay close attention. On January 18, 2020, a 21-year-old young woman named Keeslyn Roberts was seen at the same Flying J gas station, only she was encountered entering an employees-only entrance in the back on the Denny's side. Remember, this is also where Caleb's car was found. The same Flying J gas station in Resaca, Georgia. Some reports state that Keeslyn was simply told by an employee that she could not be back there in this employees-only kitchen area entrance, and others state that she actually got into some kind of altercation with the person who informed her of this and was then told to leave. There's nothing official to confirm or disprove either one of these statements. Remember, there are no cameras in this part of the parking lot. What is known, however, is that when she was told or asked to exit the area, she was allegedly just standing there, staring blankly out the door she'd just entered. Keeslyn had dropped all of her belongings. These included a backpack containing her ID, credit and debit cards, cash and phone charger, and ran off. The employees of either the gas station side or the Denny's side, again these reports conflict, ended up calling 911 and described Keeslyn as a suspicious-looking young woman and described the odd encounter. Keeslyn was never seen or heard from again. Where did Keeslyn go, and how did she get there without her car? Her vehicle was found 2 days later on January 20th with more belongings inside, parked very near where Caleb's car was found in the exact same parking lot. Witnesses would later come forward stating that they had briefly spoken to Keeslyn that fateful night, and she had allegedly told them she was there meeting a male friend. However, this alleged meeting has never been elaborated on. The person she was supposedly meeting and also her boyfriend were questioned by police shortly after she was reported missing, but so far nobody has been named either a suspect or even a person of interest in the case. It's worth mentioning that Keeslyn did have a history with drug use, mainly methamphetamine, and had blown off a mandatory probation appointment the day before she went missing, resulting in a warrant being issued for her arrest. Many speculate that Keeslyn so quickly fled from the Flying J that day due to not wanting to be there when the police were called, because she would have been arrested on this warrant. But why not take her car? More speculation had Keeslyn possibly leaving the gas station with a trucker, but again, this hasn't been confirmed. In early March of 2020, when investigators searched the Flying J, and no idea why it took this long for them to search the area her car was found in and where she was last seen, they did find items of clothing that belonged to Keeslyn in a dumpster behind the building. An anonymous witness, who has been said to be fully cooperative with police and not involved in any way to her disappearance, came forward and told reporters that these articles of clothing had been there the entire time, but police were allegedly just getting around to searching for and collecting them as evidence now, and now meaning 2 months later in March. Unfortunately, this is all the evidence available, at least online, in either case. Can it really all be a coincidence that two young people, one a known drug user and the other a possibility, found dead from intoxication from the other's drug of choice, go missing from the exact same gas station under eerily similar circumstances within 2 days of each other? Is it also just happenstance that the two also live on the same street as each other? Now, there's no evidence that they even knew each other, but still, a little too much to overlook if you ask most people involved with or following this case. Where is Keeslyn? Did she meet the same fate as Caleb and just hasn't been found yet? Was Caleb's death truly an accident? And even if it was, someone obviously moved his body at least, and at most, they murdered him and dumped it at the location where it was found. Is Keeslyn running on her own and of her own free will due to fear, again, of being arrested for that probation violation and probable relapse? It's also worth mentioning here that there have been several sightings of Keeslyn at multiple truck stops in various cities across the country. However, none of these have ever been able to actually be confirmed as her. Now, as we mentioned, her clothes were found 2 months after she was last seen fleeing the scene, so where did she go while naked? Also, without anyone seeing her, as the police are insinuating, Caleb took a 5-mile naked walk without being noticed too. Were her clothes really there the entire time, as the anonymous and seemingly cooperative witness claimed to news reporters? Or were they dumped there after the fact, for whatever reason? Currently, there's a $6,000 reward for information that could lead to Keeslyn's whereabouts. If you can help this investigation in any way, or think you have any information, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, please contact the Gordon County Sheriff's Department at 706-629-1244. So, what do you think of this case? Are these bizarre circumstances simply coincidence, or is there indeed a connection here? I look forward to reading your comments. As always, we ask that you please be respectful in the comment section when discussing this case. Many times, family and friends of the victims do watch these videos and read the comments. So please don't say anything that you wouldn't say if it was your family member or friend in this circumstance. In closing, be good to yourselves and each other. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.